Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Meraki Monday. I'm Bobby Young, and I have Dan Stewart with me as well. This week's episode is going to be a little bit of a continuation from last week's episode, where we talked about some of the release note changes and how to kind of find information and resources there. Um, it's a continuation in the sense that since Dan and I were kind of looking into it, we actually realized that they had made a change into one of the beta releases of firmware. And so, what we'd like to do is kind of go through some of the change logs today, teach you how to find the beta firmware in the future, and then go through kind of how to apply it as well. So Dan is going to kind of walk us through that. And first, Dan, do you want to go through some of the change logs and kind of what we're looking at right now?
Yeah, let's start there. So this came across, our news streams that there's new information or new feature functionality that Meraki is releasing, but it is in a beta stage right now. So if you're on the firmware upgrades page, which you can find an organization, firmware upgrades, you can go to the beta tab. And we'll find that in the MR platform, so the access points from Meraki have gotten a new release as of July 19th. And if we click on the release notes, which are going to be present from the pop out within the browser itself here, the reason why we're highlighting this is because it adds a pretty impressive feature to your wireless environments that you may already have existing. So what is new is we see here is that the MT sensor, Meraki's IoT
Hmm.
sensors that we've talked about in the past, are now able to be supported with the new with the existing MR platforms as gateways using their Bluetooth radios to support connecting your MT sensor environment.
Okay, so previously it was only available as being a gateway on the Wi-Fi 6 access points.
Exactly correct. Yeah, the Wi-Fi 6 product as well as the second generation cameras would be the gateways for the MT sensors at launch. So now, post launch of the sensors, Meraki's kind of looking at the community and saying, hey, we understand, not everyone's got a Wi-Fi 6 deployment, although highly recommended to go that direction. But if you did still have those access points as you see listed across the line here in your environment and maybe hadn't taken the plunge to look at adding the MT sensors because you said, hey, my environment can't support them. Now, if you are willing to test out or get into the beta firmware 28.3 on the MR family, you can now use those Wi-Fi 5 or AC Wave 2 access points as a sensor gateway. So that's going to broaden the sensor portfolio to more customers, which I think is great. Um, but one thing to note as getting into the beta firmware that it is, there's always challenges or issues that might be present. And as we look at the
Yes.
notes here, bullet number 2 here, I'll read it out. So the MR may reboot sporadically when MT is in the network, and that's referencing these new access points that are responsible for now acting as a gateway. So a good with a little bit of some potential challenge because the keyword here is may reboot. No rhyme or reason as to how or what would actually entail that happening. So, as with any beta firmware, tread lightly. Maybe a lab environment first, but
Sure.
those willing customers that didn't make the plunge to Wi-Fi 6 or not even looking at the MT sensors, now we have a bigger customer market we can definitely go and have those conversations on with this beta software.
Okay, great.
So that's awesome if you know that and you are in the dashboard and you have that information. But what we kind of talked about in the last video was, well, what if I'm not always in tune to that, or if I'm looking for different ways to maybe share that information publicly, where would I go? And for that, we'd recommend the community page here. And I'm actually going to back it out because we can see here that this information is found, based on this week was prior week Tuesday, this came out, and we can find it on the community. So this one takes a little bit of sleuthing to kind of find, but you have to be know what you're looking for a little bit to find this information. So I'm going to go back to the Meraki community. Great place. I recommend signing up. It's not found in new features just yet because beta doesn't mean it's going to be fully publicly available. This one you kind of have to search for. So I would just type in the software or firmware at this point, 28.3, being very specific, I'm looking for this. I want to find some information, and it just so happens that the fourth post here is talking about the .3 beta release and subsequent releases, MR28 and so on and so forth versions. You can kind of backtrack through, but if we click on this .3 version, you'll get to this page that does show publicly the same information we found from within the dashboard. You can now use this as a shareable link externally to your customers, to your partners, whoever you might be talking to that are interested in this information, may not have the dashboard right in front of them. We can use this posting to kind of highlight what we're finding here with that MT information and that little bit of the caveat there below.
Sounds good. So we have a couple MR33s, I think, laying around. Um, if we wanted to put this in on our network in one of the BTC lab networks, obviously not something that that has business traffic running through it. But if we wanted to put that on, what's the process for that from here with the beta releases?
Yeah. So once we understand what we want to go and look at, the way I would do that is go to the All Networks view. And then if we know the specific network we want to apply that to, we can definitely narrow it down by the name. Or in our case, you want to look at just specifically the device type or any wireless environment that we want to be aware of and what network it might be applied to. So I know that I have a couple networks that are of importance, of necessity to the business, but I know we have one here that's part of a template that maybe I want to use as just my guinea pig for this type of exercise. So I can just click the check mark on this specific network. I can see that I'm on version 27.x release, and we're still in a good standing and we are up to date. So my current code, general availability, is publicly released, but I can still go and schedule an upgrade to move this forward to next steps. We can look at the various different options that are available. So we can go to previous beta, can roll back, stable release candidate, or we can go to the one that we are inquiring, this latest beta here. Click on that. If you were interested in what those changes were from the firmware upgrade screen, we can definitely click on this hot link here and be taken to that same screen of what the change log is for this latest firmware and be aware of what we are applying to our network. Whoops, clicked too far off. Once we have decided that that's the beta firmware we want to go to, we can click next. Specifically for wireless environments, you have two different options of how you want to apply this to your environment. So typical environments, you're going to have, several access points deployed across different floors or across your environment. And you now have options to say, well, what's more important? If I have a change management window in off hours that's not going to impact clients, just give me the minimize upgrade time. Take all my access points down at once, hit the upgrade, and then they'll come back online in the quick time they would do it, but every access point would reboot or be updated at the same time, and thereby uh, diminishing or removing any client traffic across your entire wireless environment if that step was taken. If you want to
Okay.
minimize client downtime, you can take this approach, and this will actually go on and stagger which access points will be online. Certain access points will go offline, and then it'll look to move that over in a TikTok fashion to make sure that the clients are not impacted as you go about updating your environment. Again, mission critical environments would more so opt for this one. If you have that change management window and client impact is not as relevant, you can go with the minimize time. So I'll go with the time version because whatever. We can do the upgrade now, or we can schedule it. Pick the favorite time and date that might be important. Again, if it's a now type upgrade or a timely upgrade like this, I may want to pick this date and pick a time that would be most relevant in my change management window. Pick that and then make one final assessment. This is the direction I want to go. Schedule the change, and then at that time, you'll get a little countdown window in your dashboard to show that this has been scheduled and when it's going to actually be put into motion. That's it.
Okay, pretty easy.
Yeah.
Very cool stuff. So we'll probably be upgrading some of our firmware to that and just kind of test it out. Meraki's always been pretty good about, kind of client feedback, partners like yourself, distribution centers like us. The reason they put this stuff out there is obviously so that it can get played around with, and those known changes or those known issues can be kind of tested out in kind of more real world environments. So if you are interested in upgrading any of your stuff to the beta version, then here's how you do it. That's all we have for today, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks very much.